Throughout history, freethinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and, of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. With me is Armin Navabi, who's a little stressed out about the connection over here, but I think that we're hopefully going to figure this out. And our guest today is actually a really good friend of mine. He's a stand-up comedian and somebody who I'm really excited to have on today. And it's Mohanad Elshieky. Mohanad with an N. Right,
yeah,
Mohanad?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, thank you for joining us on the podcast. And I'm just going to say something.
Man.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something really quick. So Mohanad is from Benghazi, Libya, and he came here just a few years ago. I think in 2014. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Right, and you're now based in Portland, Oregon, and recently you were named one of Team Coco. This Conan O'Brien named you one of his comics to watch at the New York Comedy Festival.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were also featured on the docuseries Unprotected Sets by Wanda Sykes, another really amazing comedian. And I've been following you for a couple of years, and you're just rising faster and faster and faster. So it's actually quite an honor to have you here. But
thank you, man. My pleasure.
So let's start with this. So you came from Benghazi, Libya in around 2014 or so, right? So
that's correct. Yeah.
How did you come here, and how did you end up going into stand-up comedy?
Yeah, so I came here through, it was an exchange program that I came through. It was supposed to be a 6 weeks exchange program sponsored by the Department of State. It's called the MEPI program, Middle Eastern Partnership Initiative.
Right.
So, I was supposed to come here to Portland State University, take classes for 6 weeks and workshops and kind of like develop a project with Mercy Corps, and then I was supposed to take that project and implement that back home when I go back after the 6 weeks are done. Mm-hmm. And then things got kind of bad back home, like in Benghazi and Libya in general. So I wasn't able to make my return there, and I ended up having to stay here in the U.S. And apply for political asylum.
Right. No, but how did things get bad back there in terms of why did you have to?
Well, I mean, two sides for it. The one side, it was like the whole city in general, because the airport in Benghazi was burned down by Islamic militias at the time, and the one in Tripoli was burned down as well, completely demolished. Mm-hmm. And those were the two biggest airports to go back to the country. So that it left me with one option, and that was to travel through land. And I was like, I'm absolutely not going to do that. There's 600 miles of just unsafe land that I'm not willing to through. Plus, especially having a U.S. visa on my passport, that was a no-no.
Mm-hmm. What year was this?
That was the year 2014. It was June 2014.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So you couldn't go back. There was no way. But and you also, I remember,
couldn't go back yet. Yeah. Well, the other side to it is it was due to the kind of the type of work I used to do back home. So I used to work as an interpreter for journalists who would come from abroad, whatever it was, you name it. I worked with CNN, BBC, whatever. I used to take them to the front lines and do translation work with them. I also worked for a school that taught English as a second language that was sponsored by the U.S. Embassy. One other thing, I had a radio show, and we were super vocal on that radio show, and we would use to get death threats all the time and stuff, which I did not take seriously at the time. Because we were in Benghazi, so it was like, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter.
What did you talk about on the radio show that got you death threats?
We talked about So we talked about like what we think the new shape of the government is going to be like. We talked a lot about like Libya being like a secular country instead of like having religion be the main source of the constitution, and people didn't like that at all. So, people like were immediately just like calling us names. I'm like, no, you can't do that. So what the fuck do you think you're doing? That type of things.
So, but is there a thing? So is Libya? When we think of Libya, it's sort of like a vacuum. So the last time I was there, and I lived there for like I think 6-7 years. And we lived in Tripoli, me and my family, and. At that time, it was under Gaddafi. It was like a very sort of socialist. I remember they used to ration like just basic food and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But so after Gaddafi fell, was there a group of people? I mean, the youth in Libya, which is the majority of the country, is young, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are they secular leaning? Were there people who listened to your show and actually liked it and agreed with it? Or
yeah. But these people would never call us. They would just like text us in private. And we're like, I love your show. I love your stuff. But we never got support like in public. We would only get hate in public, which was like kind of like, I'm like, I wish that people like who would support us would felt safe enough to talk to us about it.
So this was during Gaddafi's time?
No, that was after Gaddafi. That was after the revolution.
So before during Gaddafi's time, a lot of people that were supporters of Gaddafi tell us atheists that we should have also supported Gaddafi because he was very secular. Was he very secular? But I mean, I don't agree.
Gaddafi was.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, man, I wouldn't say he was secular. I think he was more like, I'm like you would talk about.
All right.
Him as a bad person.
Can you repeat that part?
Himself as a prophet.
You got cut a little for a second. Can you repeat that?
No worries. Yeah. So I wouldn't say he was secular. He saw himself as a prophet himself.
A prophet, right? So so it was like one of those. Okay, so I know what you mean. So he was like a lot of the secular dictators over there. They'd created a sort of nationalistic religion.
Absolutely, yeah. So he would call himself the prophet of the desert. That was his nickname.
But
Jesus.
but in a supernatural kind of way, or in a non-supernatural? Like, was he just a cult of personality, or was it the cult? Like, there's did it have supernatural elements? It didn't. Did it? That was just
no. It did not. It did not. Absolutely not. But I mean, one of the things he's done, created his own book, which is I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, he used to write. I have heard about it, but remind me again.
Yeah, the Green Book was basically like, this is the book that we're gonna use instead of using. So it's kind of like was his own version of like religion.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, and he had people who supported him more than I would say supported the Prophet Muhammad. They were just like would die for him, and they did.
So would it have been easier for you to get away with a secular show during Gaddafi's time compared to after?
I would say yes. Absolutely, yes. Because as long as you do not criticize him personally, no one was going to come for you.
Yeah. So okay. So let's see. So what? So in 2011 is when Gaddafi falls, right? Was it 2011? Yeah, 2011 was when Gaddafi fell. Yeah. So a lot of So a lot of people here, I think there's a lot of confusion about what happened then, whether that was a good thing, whether that was a bad thing, how rose out of the vacuum at the time, the kind of chaos that ensued. And then, a year later, you had the Benghazi, you had the attack in your city, right, on the U.S.
Correct,
embassy.
Yes.
That Fox News is still obsessed with. So
yeah.
So what can you just, I guess, illuminate us in terms of what happened after the downfall, what took place, and how it led up to that attack?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. So when the revolution happened in February 2011, if you asked most people who lived in Libya back at the time, they would have told you that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. Everyone would agree on that. Like 70% of Libyans were like, yeah, this is what we want. This is a great thing. We like that. It wasn't until maybe 2 years after that or so when things started getting worse and worse, where people were like, oh, I wish we did not go in a revolution. Like, I wish like we can get Gaddafi back. I wish he was alive. Things were good back then. But 2011, everyone was like excited. Like, oh, yeah, we're done with this guy. He's a piece of shit. We don't want him. And actually, like a year after the revolution, like during that year, everything was going great. Like there was like a lot of like projects. There were like a lot of like nonprofits like coming up, and a lot of people had like so many ideas that they wanted to implement. One thing people were not aware of that during 2011, where people were like too busy with the revolution, there were another group of people that were too busy planning for what's going to happen after the rev. So they were like pile stocking like weapons. They were like preparing like kind of like creating militias, creating their own plans. So once Gaddafi was taken out of power, they started like making their plans. And around 2012, that's when they kind of like started like trying to like appeal to the youth. A lot of the youth were like, hey, yeah, you come join us. Like we're like basically like we're trying to make the country a better place. We'll protect Libya against the enemies and whatnot.
So and these were mainly like the.
Led to,
were these the sort of Islamic militant groups, or did they also include other groups?
Yes, but they did not call themselves Islamic militias then, or they did not even bring up Islam then or religion. They started as groups that were like, oh, we're a non-profit. Mm-hmm. And with a non-profit, like, and they started like kind of like cleaning the city. They were helping poor people by giving them money. There were like a lot of charity work at the time, and there were like no weapons involved or anything. And once they got like a base, once they got like a big group of people that liked them, they were like, okay, yeah, so surprise, now it's Sharia law, and we want to implement that.
This is how it's always starts. It's interesting how it always follows the same pattern, and like no mention of Sharia, just charity and good work until you get in power. And it's very interesting because it's the exact story of Muhammad. And like everybody, like charity, orphans, taking care of the poor until you go into power, and they follow the same trend everywhere. Is it by design or is it just because it works?
I think it's because it works. Right. Because like when you bring up Sharia and people are like, oh, so what am I getting out of that?
Right.
But once you attach money to that and like, oh, I'm going to give you like a certain amount of money, I'm like, oh yeah, I love that. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what, and this is the example I always give is the Palestinian situation, where you have Fatah, which is very secular and it's like relatively progressive in theory, but there's so much corruption that they are not able to provide their people with anything, whereas Hamas is just militant and crazy and apocalyptic, but they just provide all these social services and hospital services, giving money to people and so on, and that completely changes everything.
It seems like a lot of countries after the revolutions in their own country or the toppling of the government one way or another regret it. Like in Iran, they regret. A lot of people regret it, and a lot of people that were happy to see Saddam fall are now missing Saddam. A lot of people in Egypt are kind of wishing that they didn't go through it. Like a lot of people are not happy with the results of the Arab Spring. There's a lot of there's a lot of regret going around everywhere. Is that
absolutely? Yeah. I think one of the reasons is that those countries are left with no infrastructure for next. Like in Libya, like the education was so bad. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. So like when you get like a population that is mostly uneducated people, and you're like, oh, go on and build a country. They're like, we have no idea how to do that. They had no idea. Like they have no idea how to communicate with the outside world too.
Well, there's also another thing. There's a thing.
Like, they were just left.
And that was by design, wasn't it? Like Gaddafi, more than anybody, did a very good job at making sure there's no institutions that if he's gone, everything will just fall apart. He did that on purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely. Even the army that existed in Libya back then, it was only created to protect Gaddafi. So once he was out, there was no army. There was nothing. It was like the country was left with no infrastructure, no education, no hospitals, nothing. And people were like, "Oh, okay. So what do we do now?" And everyone, like, no one had an idea.
So just to give a little bit of perspective to the audience, what happens in a lot of these Middle Eastern, North African countries that have been under dictatorships, their populations are about 70% of them are under the age of 30 or under the age of 35, right? Absolutely. So the vast majority of them, and these are the sort of young people. And these dictators have been entrenched for decades. I think Gaddafi was in power for like 40 plus years. So after 40 years, they've lived their entire lifetimes under these dictators. So when the dictators fall and there's a vacuum, they don't know anything else. You know, they've seen it, they've read about it, they know theoretically how it works. But I guess when it actually comes to doing something after 40 years, when this is all you've known for your entire life,
absolutely,
where do you start, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's another reason, like in Egypt and in Libya as well now, the military is taking power again, and people love that. People love it so much because the new leader of the military now in Libya reminds them so much of Gaddafi that they like that. Like, oh yeah, he's taking people to jail. He's just like doing whatever he wants. Like he's like even like implementing a curfew and whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, that reminds us of like the good old days. So we're okay with it.
This is the same reason for popularity of Sisi in Egypt, isn't it? Okay, we love
absolutely, yeah.
When the thing is that when people here see military power, I mean, I'm not endorsing this, I'm against this, but when people here see military power as anti-freedom, where people are worried about security, they like military power because it's they see stability and safety in military power, right? They don't care about their freedom. Anyways, I think we lost them. I have so many questions written there right now.
I know there's so much. This is like fascinating.
Right. Well, you call him back. I'm gonna tell the audience the things that I'm gonna ask. I want to you focus on.
There he's back. Oh,
that was just a few seconds of going by. All right, you focus on that. I'm gonna what I want to know about Libya is first of all, I want to know the different fractions, the different powers right now, because it's very Libya is more complicated than most other places. Love of military rule, that's crazy. That's what Sean is saying in the live chat. Love of military rule, that's crazy. Yeah, see, when people are worried about safety and when people are good.
Yeah.
There's no internet.
Let's try it again.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Yeah, it's working now.
Sweet.
We're back. Okay, cool. So welcome back. So Armin, you were saying.
No, okay. Can you tell us right now what are the main different fractions right now? The main powers competing. What are their names?
Yeah.
My understanding is that Italy and France are actually fighting against each other in Libya because Italy is supporting one side and France is supporting the other side. That was bizarre.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's more than one country for sure. I mean, there's European countries, but also there's a lot of like Gulf countries as well. Because you have Qatar is fighting Saudi Arabia in Libya right now.
Yeah.
Okay, but can you tell us different? Is there three main powers? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So you have the military. That's one power.
Okay.
And that is in the eastern side of Libya. And the military is supported by the Salafis.
Whoa.
That's the main religious faction that supports them, and those people are endorsed by Saudi Arabia.
Oh my God!
Okay,
and then
so
who are the other two?
Proxy wars everywhere.
Who are the other two?
And then the other part is at the western side of the country. The western side of the country is supported by Qatar, and those are the Islamic Brotherhood.
Oh shit! Okay, and that's the main two.
Yeah, these are the main two, and then you have ISIS as well, but they're not as big now as they used to.
So Italy is on the military side or on the Islamic Brotherhood side?
They are on the military side.
So France is on the Islamic Brotherhood side?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
What the hell? Okay, so Italy, Saudi Arabia.
This is like you're saying it with a straight face. Yep, this is how it is. This is like insane.
So Italy, Saudi Arabia, and the Salafis are backing the military. France and Qatar are backing the Islamic Brotherhood.
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are gonna. Sorry, guys. We are gonna get to the comedy in case anybody's mistaken. The comedy. That's gonna be. But this is just so fascinating. We just went down this road, and now because nobody really knows. There's been all of the news reports. Anytime you hear something from one side, they say, "Well, no, that's not true. You got to listen to this." But it's Jesus. Yeah. There's.
So why is it can you tell us why are the Salafis and Saudi Arabia backing the military? Like, what's their quote unquote logic behind it, and why is France also?
I mean, I think it had to do with geography. That's it, because Salafis had a big hold in the eastern side of Libya throughout the years, and the military was on the eastern side of Libya, so. The military needed a group to support them. So Salafis were there. So that's if the military existed in the western side of Libya, I wouldn't be surprised if it was by the other side. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I just let's just get back to it. So there's all of this stuff happening. There's this chaos that's happening after 2011. So what really happened when you were in Benghazi and when that whole attack happened? What was it like from your point of view? I mean, we all know the reports about it. Over here, there was a lot of, it became a partisan issue. You had the Hillary Clinton people, and then you had the old Republican people, and they were all talking about Benghazi and what happened. And so from your perspective, what's the real story, or is there a real story?
I mean, the real story is one of the things is just the attack on the embassy that happened on 9/11 of 2012. I'm sure that wasn't prevented because everyone in Benghazi knew about the attack.
Can you repeat that? I think the CIA is hacking this call because. Can you just say exactly what you said again?
Yeah,
I said in 9/11 2012 when the attack happened, it happened at night, and everyone that morning knew that there was an attack that was going to happen at night.
Was it a coincidence that it was on 9/11?
Maybe. No one knows. I mean,
how did everybody know that an attack was going to happen that night?
Because it's a word of mouth. Everyone knows everyone. Like the people who attacked the U.S. embassy. Those were all those were people that we knew. Those were people that lived in our neighborhoods. That we knew them by name and we knew them by face. They were not people from outside of Benghazi.
So who were they? Okay, so this is totally this is fascinating.
So how did everybody know except the people that were being attacked?
The people who were being attacked, I believe they got a warning. But this is what they got. This is what we got. They got a warning that hey, today at night there's going to be a group in front of the U.S. embassy. And it is going to be they're just going to be protesting the movie about the Prophet Muhammad.
The YouTube movie that the innocence of Muslims. That's the reason that apparently blasphemy they got.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is what they heard. They heard that there's going to be a protest in front of their embassy. But to us Libyans or people in Benghazi, when you hear a protest in front of the embassy, you know immediately. Is going to resort to violence.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so everyone was like, oh, there's no such thing as a peaceful protest about the Prophet Muhammad in front of the embassy. You're going to burn that shit down or at least attack it. Everyone knew that.
But are you saying... So a lot of people are saying that this wasn't the motivation wasn't the movie, it was something else. There was... So you're saying the motivation was the outrage over the movie or
was it an excuse?
It was an excuse, yes. It was an excuse. They only use it as an excuse. And also...
An excuse for what? To attack Americans?
Yes. The other thing is I can tell you for a fact that I know for a fact that they were not planning to kill anyone in that embassy attack.
Oh, really? How do you know
yes, that? Because of the people that were there. Some of the people who witnessed the attack, who lived in the neighborhood and stuff, it escalated. It started from like, oh, we're just gonna bring like weapon, like we're just gonna like set some stuff on fire, and then that escalated, and like shooting started to happen, and then because like if you like one of the main things is like the U.S. ambassador was not killed because he was shot or anything.
It was smoke.
He was killed because he suffocated from
smoke
from the embassy because it was And I know for a fact that a lot of people like who were involved in the attack that they were terrified when that happened, when he was killed, because that was never their initial plan.
And a lot of people in Libya liked him. He was very close.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he was very close.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was amazing. Like I knew him personally because I worked at the school that was sponsored by the U.S. Embassy, so he came and visited multiple times. He was a great man. Everyone loved him in Benghazi.
Wow, what a loss, eh?
So just as summary, so I'm just trying to get this straight. So the reason that all of these people in Benghazi, I mean, I guess people that you knew, a small community, the reason they went and they attacked it was that the movie kind of gave them an excuse to attack Americans. In a way, or American interests?
Absolutely, yes.
No, but no. You just said that their intention was not to kill. The intention was to just burn something, but then it escalated into something else. Is that what you're saying?
It was mostly they were trying to make a statement. They were trying to terrify the American.
Right. So there was anti-American sentiment, but it wasn't necessarily personal against the American ambassador who was popular.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
It wasn't. Okay. It wasn't against him personally, and the reason I know that it's because of the years after that. Because in the years after the attack, every 9/11, something like that happens, where they try and attack the Americans or do something similar to that.
Oh, as the anniversary. So where were you during the attack?
So it wasn't a coincidence in that it was on 9/11.
No, that wasn't.
No, it wasn't a coincidence. No.
Right.
So where were you during the attack? Were you how did you process it? Did you know ahead of time that something was going to happen personally?
I knew ahead of time that was something that was going to happen. Also, I live like a mile away from where the embassy is.
Okay.
So did you hear the gunfire and all the?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All of it.
Wow.
And we were told not to leave the house because no one was sure what was going to happen. But you can see everything was on Facebook Live at the time. People were just like posting pictures on Facebook and stuff of the attack. So you can put two and two together, like where you hear it outside and then you see everything on Facebook.
Huh.
Jesus.
Kind of when they were attacking, when they were trying to capture Bin Laden, somebody posted on Facebook that their helicopters was coming. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it is crazy because like once you're like into that community, like you know everything. The other thing that I found very strange because like the guy who killed, organized the attack. Was only captured like 2 years after the incident, or 3 years after the incident.
Right.
And it is funny to me because like they was doing a lot of investigation, and you see on the news they're like, "Oh, we're trying to figure out who the guy was," and I'm like, "You can just come to Benghazi and ask anyone who lives there. We will show you where he lives. We know exactly who he is."
So nobody was trying to cover for him or anything?
I mean, he had maybe 2 guards, and that's it. And that's how they got him. They actually bribed one of the guards that led him to like a specific location, and then they took him.
I guess the complication is like a lot of the stuff that you say and they didn't. The procedures that they have to go through is for them to be able to verify the information. Like they can't just go and say like we arrested this person. Because so and so in the neighborhood told us to go that this is the guy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
But it was just like kind of ironic. Like everyone is just like, yeah, he's right there. You can just please go and take him. You know? Yeah, that piece of shit. Like we all know him.
So this thing happens, right. The Benghazi thing happens, and then so clearly there's a lot of anti-American sentiment because every 9/11 they're doing something to sort of scare the Americans and all this stuff. And now you're working for all of these Western people like the BBC and the way you said CNN and all that. Yeah. So you're working with them and you're helping them out. So in your community in Benghazi, like the same people who went and they did this sort of attack on the embassy, how do they process that this is one of our guys and he's going out and he's working with all these American media agencies? Or was that seen as different?
It wasn't seen as different. I mean, at the time, I had friends and stuff who supported me, and my family was okay with it, and a lot of people in the community. But there were few groups who were you work for the Americans. That's what you do. This is treason. You shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, I don't care, man. It's a job. I'm not working for the U.S. government. I'm working for these people who are this is free press I'm working with. It doesn't I'm helping them get verified information. I'm the one who's making sure that they get the correct information and not just whatever. And I as I mentioned earlier, because of the radio show and because of my work, I used to get death threats all the time. I even my car was shot twice. Once when I was driving it, and one time when I wasn't.
Wait, your car was shot while you were driving it?
Yeah, when I was driving to college, it got shot at, and then another time when I wasn't in the car. So if somebody wanted to kill you, is it really that hard to kill you in Benghazi? It is not. No, I mean,
so how do they
a lot of people. I have no idea.
We're very glad they missed, by the way.
Yeah,
I just want to know.
When I look at my time back there, I was lucky, and that's it. There were no other factors that led to me being here or me not being killed, other than the fact that I was lucky. Because I know a lot of people who were journalists or did the type of work I did who were assassinated.
Mm-hmm. So simply, it's simple, not because of your ideas or any of your views. It was mostly because you work with Americans. That's the reason why you were targeted.
Well, exactly.
I think it's all of that, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. Because when you work for Americans, that means two things. That means, first, your views are very liberal. Second, to them, you're not a Muslim anymore. They see you they give you the badge you work for the Americans, then you have the same beliefs as they are.
But how is a country that went under Gaddafi for so many years, where Islam wasn't a priority for him, how is everybody so obsessed now with you're not a real Muslim, you're too liberal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because these groups claimed that Gaddafi prevented them from practicing real Islam.
Right.
So once he was, I remember when Gaddafi was alive, my dad never went to those morning prayers and stuff, because people who did that, people who went to the mosque a lot, they usually get captured and they usually get questioned by Gaddafi forces.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, see, this is how usually so at Gaddafi's time, if you go to the mosque a lot, you're a target for the government.
Absolutely, 100%.
See, this is what I say. Forced secularism always has a reaction. It has a negative. It never works. It actually makes the Islamic reaction to forced secularism is worse.
Yeah.
It comes back much stronger than it ever was. This is the same trend that we had in Iran, same trend we had in Egypt, same thing we had in Turkey. Islam is growing faster in these countries than ever before, even though they had secular authoritarians trying to force secularism on their people. But go on.
Absolutely. Yeah, also another thing that was funny, that Gaddafi made politics influence religion. And the way he did that, Gaddafi never liked Saudi Arabia. He was he hated the king of Saudi Arabia so much. So whenever Because they had back when they had like some kind of like, I don't know, that meeting they have every year with the UN, like, or like the Arab nations or whatever. They kind of got into heated discussion in 2009, and since then he just hated his guts. Or maybe it was even before 2009, but he hated him so much to the point where this is how we know when Ramadan ended or when Eid was. If Saudi Arabia says Eid is Monday, then ours is Tuesday.
Oh, that's like the Shia. That's what the Shia do.
Yeah, we never look at the moon. The moon doesn't matter. If they say Monday, then we do it Tuesday, just because we're not gonna fast and.
So he was also in love with, what's her name? Ali, help me out here. Who was Gaddafi?
I thought you said he was in love with Ali.
No.
Like,
what's her name?
I don't know. Who he was in love with.
Oh, come on. You know who I'm talking about.
Margaret Thatcher?
No. He was actually obsessed with...
Queen Noor?
No. Was she a president or like a prime minister or what?
No. She was... hold on.
Okay, look it up. I'll figure it out.
He collected all her pictures in a book. Gaddafi and...
I feel like I know who you're talking about. I can't remember it myself.
Yeah, I've read this. I've read about this somewhere too. Yeah. So, okay. So that to me. So okay. So I want to move on to. We have so many questions about this. But,
but while I look this up, can you tell us about like how did these death threats eventually led to your asylum case for you to become like a refugee?
Absolutely, yes. Because when I left to the U.S., they got it so bad. Because before I left to the U.S., no one has broken into my house before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, but when I left the U.S., that made it kind of like even like worse because they were like, oh my God, he got a visa easily. Now he went to work for the Americans in their land.
So now you're a definite spy.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So they broke into my house twice. One when my family was there and one when my family wasn't there. And that actually led to my family like leaving. They went and left Benghazi to live in Tripoli because they just couldn't stay there anymore.
Wow.
So not everybody is like, as an asylum case, is it really difficult? Like, do you have to provide a lot of evidence? Like, is it what's the process of that?
Yeah, you absolutely have to provide a lot of evidence because what they ask you for your asylum case, you can't just be like, oh, it's bad back in Libya and the situation is bad and whatever. You have to prove that you personally, if you go back, you will be targeted personally. If you're like, oh, if I go back, I might die because they might attack some certain village that I'm in. They're like, yeah, that doesn't work for us.
Right. Because because everybody could then say that, right? Oh.
Yeah, but
absolutely, yeah. You have 5 million people who live in Libya. Everyone can use the same excuse, and I mean it's true because they live in a war zone. But you have to give like, oh yeah, like this is I am personally under attack.
Right. By the way, Condoleezza Rice, that's who he was in love with.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Did you know this, Ali?
Oh, yes. I read that in the Rolling Stone feature that they did on him. Yeah, that he was obsessed with. He
sent her gifts, and he also had an album of her pictures. It was so weird.
He even used to hit on her in live interviews.
Right.
Which was very embarrassing.
He also had only female bodyguards for some reason.
That's correct. Yeah.
And he never wanted to go into he was afraid of heights. I think he would never book a room higher than a certain level. And he also had a giant tent that he would bring with him.
Absolutely. So he always brought the tent because he was worried that it crashes and falls on him or something.
Wow.
So he always took his tent everywhere.
That's amazing.
In New York, where did he set it? Like when he was in New York, he set it in Central Park or something. I don't know. I don't remember the story.
I think when he came to New York, ironically, I think it was he set up his tent in Donald Trump property.
I don't remember. But this is a story I've been hearing since I was a kid. And then apparently I was one of the kids that he picked up, like how politicians pick up kids. Yeah. And because I think I was the only kid there. So I've actually been held by Gaddafi, if I'm to believe my parents, who are fairly authentic. So it's a pretty real situation. So
the way he died was very bad, though. It was very disgusting.
Sodomized with a knife. Yeah.
Like somebody shoved a knife in his.
It was bad.
In his ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was
they absolutely did that. And honestly, like even during the revolution, even though we hated him so much, like when I remember like seeing that on TV, I was like, okay,
that's too much.
This is bad. I'm like, I don't like that. Yeah. Because I personally, honestly, wanted him to like him to go to trial or something, like go to jail, something like that. But like being killed like that, okay, yeah,
it's bizarre.
It's kind of like,
I know. So last thing before we move on to your travel to the U.S. is your family back there. You're still in touch with them. Everything is how are they doing?
Yeah,
they're in Tripoli now, all of them, or
I always talk. What's that?
No, I said, are they all in Tripoli now, or are they? Or yes, can you not say? It's up to you.
No, they're all in Tripoli. Yes, they're all in Tripoli, except I have a brother who lives in Washington State.
Oh, in Washington State. Oh, so you have company. That's not so far.
Yeah, and he's like maybe 4 hours away, so I see him a lot. And
are they safe?
Okay,
relatively safe. Yes, I mean Tripoli. There's nothing much happening there, and my parents are like hold like no political beliefs at all, I guess. So like they're
just to be clear,
and the army's in power. So
exactly.
To be clear, which Tripoli? We have more than one Tripoli. Tripoli, Libya, I mean, right?
Tripoli, Libya. Yeah.
Not Lebanon. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The original Tripoli was in Libya.
Yeah,
that's the original. The Tripoli Treaty. The very first U.S. foreign conflict that the United States ever had was with the people in Tripoli. It was with a bunch of jihadist pirates in Tripoli. Actually, that's where the Treaty of Tripoli came from.
Yeah, this is why we have we have to thank Tripoli because the United States owes them for making it clear that that United States is based on no religion. Is that true? Am I getting this right? Yes.
Actually, it was in the Treaty of Tripoli that it said that the U.S. is not based on any religion. But I mean, that was a thing. It's been said in many different parts. It's in the First Amendment and all these other things.
Yeah, but there was nowhere other than here that is specifically mentioned the United States government is based on based on any religion. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So thank you, Tripoli.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tripoli, for that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So now to the fun part. All right. So you come from you come to the U.S., right, and you end up where you are now on the West Coast, and so I guess you already had some sort of showbiz experience with doing your radio show and things like that. And then you come here. How do you get into stand-up comedy?
Well, I've never I never thought about comedy. That wasn't a thing that was on my radar. Like my goal when I moved to the US, I was like, oh, I'm so happy that I get to see a live stand-up comedy show. That was like my only goal. I'm like, I want to see like live stand-up comedy because I've only watched it on like YouTube or like whatever like videos like my friends provided me and stuff. So that was like a great opportunity for me. I was like, oh, I finally get to see. That's so cool. And then when I went to college in Portland State University, I went to business school, and one of my prerequisites was public speaking. And I was supposed to give like 4 speeches about like topics that they choose. And then at the end of the semester, I remember like my public speaking professor coming to me and he asked me, oh, do you do stand-up comedy? And I was like, no, I've never tried doing stand-up. He was like, why the fuck not? He was like, you should do stand-up.
Why were your public speeches the stuff you did in class? Did it make people laugh? Did they like it? Or?
They did, yeah. Because like I never knew how to like make like I would write the speech and I'm like, this is so boring, so I add so many jokes to it, and and the other thing that
Can you give us examples?
Oh, I mean, one of the things like he asked like the last speech was like, hey, choose any topic that you want. So my topic was coming to the U.S.
Right.
So I wrote about I wrote like a 7-minute speech about my journey in the U.S. and moving from Libya to here, and they loved so much because I had a lot to say about that. But like other things that they like, even like I remember like I had to write one speech, and that was like about like the refugee problem in Syria. And I managed to find a way.
Obviously, a very humorous premise there.
Exactly, yeah. I managed to like find ways to like put jokes there, and they loved that so much. Like I didn't think you can make this funny, but it is somehow.
Can you give us an example of the jokes that
asked me if I did, like he was like, and I wish I would remember because that was like years ago. But it was like, I think most of the jokes were obviously not about the refugee problem itself. It was about like how like Western countries like would handle that, like, or what they thought about.
Yeah. So
so
you do that, and so you're coming in, and then your teacher professor tells you to go into stand-up comedy, and you've grown up listening to and been a fan of stand-up comedy. So do you immediately, are you nervous about it, or do you decide, okay, let's give this a shot? What made you decide to go into it?
Well, one thing I did, I actually took a class. It was a stand-up comedy, and it was like 5 weeks at a theater, and here comedy place.
Sorry, Mo.
After those 5, and the reason.
Yeah, no, I was saying that your connection's getting a little choppier again. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you? If you can hang up, I'll just call you back because usually it refreshes it a bit. Okay. Just hang up, I'll call you back.
Can you get him to tell us some of the examples?
Yeah, he's gonna. We'll go into that in a bit. Hold on. Because I can't.
Because I want to see how you can make shit like this funny.
He will. We'll get to that in a bit. I just want to get a story because it's really interesting.
Right.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, we're there. So, okay. So let's try it again. And if it there we go. So if it freezes up, we can maybe go audio only. But anyway, we'll edit this out in the final thing. So So you're here. How did you take that first step? You took a stand-up comedy course. You're talking about.
Yeah, so I took a stand-up comedy course, and the thing that really helped me with the stand-up comedy course was the fact because I needed someone to tell me that I can do it, and show me how kind of like to polish my material because I had a lot of topics that I wanted to talk about, but I just didn't know how to like the structure of like a set up punchline. I didn't know how to kind of like polish that and make it like into short jokes.
Yeah.
So once I got that structure, and then I had people like every class were like, "Oh, this is good. We like that. Keep doing it." And then at the end of the stand-up comedy class that we did, we had a show where we invited friends and people that we knew and did like the shows. It was like very like kind of like very supportive, very nice, and people liked it so much. So like, oh, okay, so I can definitely do that. Now I'm confident enough that I can go and try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when I started like hitting up open mics and stuff.
So one of the Armin was like, he's dying to hear some examples. So I'm going to give an example of one of your, and I'll let you explain it. Like one of my favorite jokes that I've seen you do, and this gets massive laughs. Like every time, all the videos of you performing it, is when you talk about how ISIS overshadowed Al Qaeda. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's one of my favorite jokes. I've actually I added parts to it since. So I talk about I'm doing my set and I'm just doing a normal set, and then out of nowhere, and I'm like, talking about ISIS, and people are like, what the fuck just happened? Like what? Like, why are we bringing up ISIS now? And they're like, yeah, man, I'm like, I hate them. I don't like them. I don't like their work. And then I'm like, do you know who hate ISIS more than anyone else? It's that group, Al Qaeda. And then I'm like, yeah, you remember them? They used to be big on YouTube. And then I'm like, oh yeah, only the 90s kids can relate. And then I'm like, yeah, Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda is probably somewhere now in a cave, just watching ISIS just thrive on TV and do their thing, and they're there just being like fucking millennials with their fancy cameras and shit.
Yeah, no. Fucking millennials.
So who's going to be the terrorist organizations for Generation Z? Because ISIS.
I have no idea. We'll see. So
millennials would be ISIS, I guess. Al Qaeda or the baby boomers. There's going to be a new one for Generation Z. Probably they're going to have TikTok videos.
Yeah, I don't even know. Hey, TikTok's a thing.
It's going to be something with a new name. We'll see.
Yeah. So so you start doing this, and then your content is, first of all, it's amazing. There's another time I think you were talking about how your name is similar to Muhammad, except for one letter.
Yeah.
So
and I'm like, he named his sword Mohanad by changing one letter, which is I'm like.
So wait. So just for the background, the Mohanad. So Mohanad was the name of the Prophet Muhammad's sword, right?
Yes,
that's what you're named after. Okay, so he did it by changing just one letter.
Yeah, it was just like one letter, and I mean, like it has its origins in Arabic. Like it has a meaning, like because the name itself. The name itself originated from the fact that the sword was made from steel that was imported from India, and India in Arabic is al-Hind. So Mohanad came from it.
Oh,
is this actually authentic? Is this canon, or is this just some people believe this? I didn't know this. We know Ali's sword's name, swords. The sword of Ali's sword is Zulfiqar, right? With the one that has two the two. I don't know.
The two edges.
Two edges. This actually tells you a lot about Shia Muslims, because we know the name of Ali's sword, but we didn't know Muhammad's. I didn't know Muhammad's sword also had a name. I mean, Ali's sword was unique. That's why it was so interesting to us, because everyone's sword had only one edge, and Ali's sword had two edges. So why would you name? So his sword should have a name. But all other swords, why did they deserve a name? They're just like any other sword.
It's just like people now who name their cars, you know.
Yeah.
I think Muhammad named his sword after he saw Ali's sword has a name, and he was jealous. It was like, why is everybody talking about Ali's sword? Like my sword. He probably came up with the India story just because his sword wasn't special. He made up that story so that people start talking about his sword.
But like so the thing that I saw that they were asking you about your name, and you you ascribed it to laziness.
I was like, change one letter, that way you will never forget the name. Like you just like always remember it. I'm like, this is clever. You will never forget it that way. And then I was like, that was clever. I'm like, say what you will about the Prophet Muhammad, and you shouldn't. It's very clever.
But you're right. We don't know how much of the stories are true. Probably not much of it. But the character in the story, if you think about it, he's very clever. He went from being like a broke nobody to all of a sudden convincing this rich woman to marry him, and he became very rich. And then after that wasn't good enough. He came up with the story of being the prophet of God or something, and he became the king of. So he went from a goat herder to be a rich husband, and then to being the king of all Arabia. This is like the most successful entrepreneur of all time.
Yeah, he's still doing pretty well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he died pretty happy.
It's not very different from the Fire Festival, you know.
very different from the fire. You know, Armin, you don't know about the Fire Festival?
No, what are you talking about?
That was like this big festival that they were going to set up, and then it didn't work out, and then a lot of people bought tickets. They completely got. It's a long story.
Well, I mean, think about the Fire Festival Island as if that was heaven.
Right.
Yeah, because these people were promised. They were promised if they did those specific thing, and if they shared it, and if they paid money, and if they did all of those things, they will go to the Fire Festival Island. That's basically heaven. And then they went there, and there was nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I compare his story to Jesus' story, because Jesus also wanted to start a rebellion. And he got crucified for it. Like, basically, it's kind of the same story, right? Except one of them was successful, one of them wasn't. Both of them were starting a rebellion against the religious authorities around them.
Yeah.
One of them got crucified for it. The other one won. That's the main difference. I mean, again, we don't know what percentage of these stories are true. Probably very little. But if you just look at the stories, and then the people, I guess if Muhammad was killed as well, maybe his following would be like, oh, that was just his plan. He died for our sins or something like that. Maybe it would be very similar.
There's always a plan for that. So
yeah. There's always a plan.
We know that this. It's very interesting. We know that if you win, that was the plan. And if you lose, that was also the plan. Because that's exactly what Shias did to Hussein. I was
just going to say, Hussein was the Jesus for the Shias, like the way that Muhammad is for. So
he lost in battle, and guess what? Surprise, surprise! That was always his plan, to die for our sins or whatever. Yeah, go on.
Sean is saying that I have relatives in Portland. We'll have to come see one of your shows. Yeah. So you're going to have somebody, one of our patrons coming. But
where can people find your shows, actually, in Portland?
Oh, I do have a website. So, like, I always keep that updated with dates and shows that I have.
What's the website?
MohanadElshieky.com.
All right, Ali, make sure you link to when we release the podcast.
Yep, I already have it here. So, I wanted to kind of get back to this and just talk about comedy. So one of the things that I talk about here a lot is that I've noticed that most of the comedians I know who are from the Muslim world who is going out and doing comedy, they tend to have a secular outlook. Most of them are actually, a lot of them, we know this about like Kumail Nanjiani, Aziz Ansari has actually declared himself. He says that he's an atheist. Pretty much many of them. Some of them obviously don't, but they tend to have secular outlooks, and I feel like that is going to probably help change this whole idea of what Muslims are, or the fact that anybody from the Muslim world is necessarily religious and necessarily is a practicing Muslim. So those assumptions, it challenges those assumptions. So that's why I think like what you're doing is amazing, and you're actually very good at it. And it's not just me who's saying that. Conan O'Brien saying that. Wanda Sykes is saying that. I mean, everybody kind of sees it because your rise has been really fast in just a few years, if not months, right? So when you do this, when you go out, and I've seen that you do some of the more edgier stuff too. You talk about your background. You talk about some of the religion stuff too. Yeah. What is the state of comedy right now? Like right now, I know that everybody's always outraged at jokes, people getting fired for tweets, people digging up old tweets of people who've made sort of politically incorrect jokes. College campuses, I mean, are virtually impossible to play at. That guy, Nimish Patel, the SNL writer, he was kicked off of a Columbia stage for literally no reason. I mean, you didn't even do anything. But what's your experience been like? Have you played college campuses? Are there audiences that you've found are a little queasy with your material, or how's it been?
So I played college campuses. I played in states that were more red as well as states that were like bluer than like the others. I think one thing is just like, is it harder to do comedy now? Yes, because like you can get away with a lot of stuff. But I think one of the good things about that, it actually makes you think of smarter material. Mm-hmm. Because like now it became a challenge for me to make no matter how blue or how red or how Republican or how liberal you are or how sensitive or not you are, I'm gonna make you laugh, and that's like what a good comedian does.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the audience is making my job hard, but I'm taking that challenge. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write jokes to make you like this, no matter what. Like an example I can think of that is like a few days ago, I was in Texas. I was in Texas for 5 days.
Yeah.
And I started most of my material by talking about the Bible and guns.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know these people won't like they don't like to talk about these things, but I was rewriting my material like every day to make these people like what I'm talking about. And like at the end of the day, they might not agree with me, but they laughed at every joke I told about it because they see the humor in it. And they like, if they don't laugh about it, then it's on them, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but it's the Bible and guns. So
Like
how do you make that funny in Texas?
well, I mean, one of the things they talk about is just like, I'm like, yeah, growing up, I used to read the Bible. Like I grew up Muslim. I grew up in a Muslim family. But growing up, I used to read the Bible a lot because you got to know what your enemies are up to.
Oh, that's good.
No, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then I'm like, oh, yeah, and apparently you were up to the same thing. Like, well, this is the same thing. And then I talk about, like, the prophet Noah. Like, I read his story, and I find it doesn't check out. And it's not the fact that he lived to be 950 years old, but it's the fact that his wife stayed with him that whole time. I'm like, I'm not buying that. And then I'm like, no, I believe everything else in the Bible is just this one thing I'm not buying. Yeah. And people just start laughing at that.
What are some of the most sensitive things that you touch that it's kind of like getting close to people losing their patience? Oh,
it is funny because some of the things that make people lose their patience is not stuff that has to do with them. Sometimes when I joke about stuff that has to do with me personally, and some people try and get offended on my behalf.
Oh yeah, don't we know what that's like?
What? Like wait, I don't know what you can you give an example?
Go ahead.
Yeah, like one of the things is like I have a joke where I talk about like a dude that yelled at me on the internet. And he was like, you fucking Muslim, I eat bacon 24/7. And people are like, get like this. They get mad about it. And I'm like, I'm fucking telling the joke. I'm not mad about it. Why are you mad about it? I thought it was so funny.
I'm actually concerned about that guy's health if he's eating bacon.
I mean, that's the rest of the joke. Yeah, I'm like, I don't think that's healthy, but healthy.
This other thing you did about retail, I think you were talking about how people who say all lives matter. I've never worked retail because
never worked retail before. Yeah,
because there are definitely people whose lives don't matter.
One of the things that I had to remove from that joke is I used to end it with like because once you do retail, it changes your perspective from all lives matter to some people deserve to die. And then I'm like, especially old people, and then some people are like, don't like that.
Yeah, the old people, the ages thing.
But I'm like, but you know it. It's mostly old people like at like these places who just yell at you all the time. I'm like, whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Do you shit on Islam at all in any of your comedy routines?
I honestly don't shit on anything. Like when you hear my comedy, like it's not like I don't take like because what I do is I'm like I'm gonna take something that you like and I'm gonna make fun of it, but without you saying that I shat on that thing. It's just my observation on it. Well, it's deep down, like I'm making fun of the Noah story and I'm making fun of the Bible. But I would never say I'm making fun of the Bible or like, the Bible is not true. I'm just like, I'm making fun of these stuff, and it's you draw your own conclusion out of it.
Right, but from the perspective of people that when you're commenting about the religion or the Christianity or whatever, they see it as you shitting on it. But the trick, I guess, with comedy is to do it in such a tasteful way that they allow you to do it, even to shit on stuff that they usually wouldn't have allowed. Like I think that's what comedy
that's why it's
is
so
for.
powerful. That's why the comedy and satire is so powerful.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, when it comes to Islam, one of the things, like the joke we were talking about, I use this in my set now, where I'm like, when I'm talking about the Prophet Muhammad, and I'm talking about the weapon, and I'm talking about like you shouldn't talk about him, and all of these stuff. I did this joke in front of like Muslim crowds before, and they like they cringe at the beginning, but they can't help but they start laughing as well.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the best. The best reactions are when people want to be offended, but they can't stop laughing. Like they are hating themselves for finding something funny. And that's that's the best reaction.
And it's funny because so one time I had this couple and they were in the front row. And obviously I can tell they were Muslim because the woman was wearing a hijab and she was with her husband. And I told that joke. And they started laughing hysterically, and then I pointed at them. And I was like, "You're feeling bad right now." And she was like, "Yeah." She was like saying that through like laughing, and I was like, "This is so funny to me."
Yeah, this is one. I think there's a couple of times I've seen you go up and tell a joke where I guess people are uncomfortable. They don't know if they should laugh or not. They want to, they don't, and then you give them permission.
Absolutely,
You say something like, "It's okay, I give you permission to laugh."
Exactly. Exactly. Or sometimes I would tell jokes about my mom, for example, that like would seem harsh sometimes, but then I'm like, "Oh, my mom loves this joke; it's her favorite joke." So they would start laughing as well once they know that's an okay thing.
So I've seen there are people say that every comedian has bombed. Every comedian will bomb at some point.
Yeah.
Bomb,
but
like in an Allah Akbar kind of way.
No. Armin, you are. No. So Armin is, sort of a very, very topical. If you haven't noticed, but that's why we love him. But but that was actually a good joke. But every comedian will do it. Have you bombed ever?
Oh, absolutely.
Because when I see the audiences in your sets, like even like the milder kind of build-up jokes get such huge laughs.
Yeah,
it's just hard to imagine that. You have
It sometimes
mean?
Bomb means that nobody have an unsuccessful.
Those jokes were bombed.
Right. Oh, sorry, Mo. There was some crosstalk. That's why I didn't hear that you were talking. No, okay. But I was telling Armin. No, I was just explaining to Armin what bomb means.
All right, go on.
Yeah. So bombing.
You said it. Okay, got it. I got it.
So bombing basically is doing your jokes and stuff and getting zero laughter. Like you get nothing. You talk for 15 minutes, no reaction whatsoever.
Right.
And at the beginning, when I used to do comedy, that was like the most painful thing ever. Because you go home and I'm like, I can't sleep at night. I'm like, this is so bad. I hate everything. I hate myself. It's just like, and then you learn how to embrace it. Like bombing sometimes is as good as doing, because you learn a lot from it.
Yeah.
It actually makes the material better. I'm like, oh, I want this to be a joke that never bombs. So you can like actually make it even better. But like I had that happen to me like multiple times, like where sometimes like it's due to, so the crowd is not in the mood. The room is not good. Sometimes like the room is not good for comedy. Like the ceiling is very high. And the lights are on, and that's always bad for comedy. Like when the lights are on, it's bad. When you can see the whole crowd, it never works.
What? Right. Really? Huh.
Yeah, because here's the thing about people. People don't want you to see them laugh about specific things.
Yeah.
So once like the crowd can see everyone, sometimes people want to laugh, but they don't want to be seen laughing about this one thing, so they will just hold it.
Right.
So
yeah,
I have a suggestion. I don't think you're going to do it, but I'm waiting for somebody to do it because I think the Quran and the Hadith. Here's my Hadith Bukhari book. like when I read Hadith Bukhari, I just think like this is like comedy.
There's a lot of comedy.
There's
in there.
so much comedy in here. Like you don't like this is such a gold mine for a comedian, but I think a lot of people think it's too sensitive to start making fun directly at the Hadith or the Quran. They think like that's a no-go area. But I'm like, but there's so much stuff here. There's so much, like it just writes itself. Like some of the stuff in here, you don't even have to do anything with it. You just read it out loud, and people would start laughing. So wouldn't you like consider like taking like the Quran and Hadith and take specific verses or specific stories out of the Quran?
The thing is, like, sometimes, like, you have to remember, like, people do, like, it is due to the lack of knowledge of people about, like, these things. Like, people know what the Quran is. People don't know what Hadith is. Like, a lot of, like, Americans here would have no idea what you're talking about. There's like, another book that is kind of, like, supplementing the first book. So they would have no idea what you're talking about. The other thing is, like, once you start talking about these stuff and, like, bringing up by their name, people wouldn't, like, even if people found them funny, they will not laugh because they are worried about that other people will think that they're bigots because they laughed about it.
Right, but I think it's because not that many people have touched it yet. It will make huge waves. First of all, it will normalize making fun of stuff that people think that you shouldn't be talking about.
It's been done. There's a.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
But and also you could introduce the Hadith in one joke, like I don't know, like Quran's a little bitch or something. I don't know. You could make fun of what Quran is, what the Quran is to the Hadith is to the Quran. I don't know. You can make some. I don't.
No, but the thing is,
you could even if people don't know what Hadith is, you could just introduce it in one joke. What?
Yeah, no, it's actually been done in Kumail Nanjiani's stand-up special Beta Male.
Right.
He actually talked about, but he didn't say it was a hadith. Like he was telling a story about how when he became, and I'm going to paraphrase it, it'll be totally unfunny because he did it way better. But he talked about how when he was going through puberty and he liked looking at girls, right, lustfully.
Yeah.
Then his parents had told him, like, and this is based on hadith, that every time you look at a girl with lust, it's like stabbing the prophet in the back. Okay, and then he was walking on stage going, he's like, and you have no idea how many times I stabbed the prophet in the back, and so he did it like that. He took one specific thing.
Remember that one.
But I think that the key is to take, because the idea is that it's not just about the topic. It's about taking the topic and then finding something in it that is relatable universally to everybody.
Absolutely.
Right? And then making fun of, like, for example, this guy, Ricky Gervais, actually, he's the only guy who actually did this very literally. Is he in that special, I think it was called, I think it was in Animals, his special Animals. Yep. He took out the Bible and he just went through the Genesis story, the creation myth.
Right. And
that was fucking hilarious.
Speaking of the Bible and stuff, so there's a show that happens here, and it's called Reading the Bible with Dan. Where so they would bring up a panel at the Helium Comedy Club, and beforehand, Dan would be like, "So these are the verses from the Bible that we're going to read today." And then he would read the verse, and then we, as a panel, we would discuss it and make fun about it, make jokes about it.
Yeah.
So why don't we do that with the Quran? Why is it why is it okay for Ricky Gervais? I want somebody to do what Ricky Gervais did to Genesis, to some chapters in the Quran and Hadith.
I think it's because the audience here, you're here in the U.S., right? So people are, go ahead, Mo.
No, it's exactly what you were gonna say, because once you say like reading the Quran with Dan, people are not going to come because I'm like, oh yeah, this is like Islamophobic. This is going to be like, people like look at me.
Actually, more than the Islamophobic thing, I think it'll just be like they're not interested. Like, I don't know anything about the Quran.
Well, just make a YouTube. Okay, global. Okay, do the Christian or whatever stuff on when you're doing something in Portland live. But maybe you could have like a YouTube channel for a global audience that you do comedy on Islam. right? And just go.
That will definitely have its audience for sure.
Video Vids.
Yeah, like Video Vids already does that. Like Video Vids does.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He hasn't gone through the Quran and Hadith yet. Like he does. I want him to do that. Maybe Video. So, like here's an example, right? Like we have Hadith.
Armin really wants. Yeah, go ahead.
No, because it's not fair.
I was saying it's good. You really want to do this.
It's not fair.
I'm down with it. I think it would be hilarious. Yeah, but
we have Hadith where Moses is like taking a bath and a rock comes and steals his clothes, and Moses starts chasing the rock, and start hitting the rock with the stone, asking him to give the clothes back. And this is authentic Islamic. This is authentic Islamic hadith. We have hadith where flies, if a fly falls in your drink, you have to dip it fully in, because every fly has like one poison on one wing and the medicine for that poison in the other wing. So you have to make sure that you have to dip it fully in to make sure that you also got the medicine. We have hadith about drinking camel piss to cure stuff. Like, come on, like there's so much stuff in here. No, we have Aisha. We have hadith about Aisha saying that every time he washes the Muhammad's clothes, he finds cum. We have on Muhammad's semen on Muhammad's clothes, and no matter how much he washes Muhammad's clothes, there's still more semen on his clothes all the time, and he can't wash.
That could be more creepy than funny, though.
No, but I'm not saying this is funny, but I'm saying you can do something with it, like to make it funny. Like you're a comedian. Comedians are genius. There's stuff you could do with this. This is all in authentic Islamic hadith book. There's so much material.
I mean, one way to introduce it is like Kumail did it. It's just like my parents told me that. So it kind of like it touches on it without saying like specifically where it's from. So you can cause like the thing you said about the fly, my dad told me that so many times and I've never done it. I was like, when a fly is in my milk or like drink or something, I'm like, I'm just gonna throw this away. I'm not gonna drink it. I don't care. Yeah.
Wait, that joke got ruined by the internet connection.
Yeah. You froze, Ruben.
It was a perfect. It was the connection got lost exactly at the punchline of your joke.
I mean, it wasn't even a punchline. It was just like me being like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna dip a fly in my drink. I'm just gonna throw the shit away."
Right?
Like, I don't care who said what.
No, but you can't afford to throw water away if you're in the desert.
So here's another sort of. I guess I'm trying to think of the big idea here. Because I'm looking at the. When people talk about how there was this idea that, if Trump becomes elected president, then it's going to be a gold mine for comedians. But when every day and every instant is just a comedic moment in itself that you can't even satirize. I mean, how are you going to satirize something that's better in real life, funnier in real life than it could ever be if you wrote it? So I feel like with some of the hadith and some of these religious traditions and things like that, do you feel like it's low-hanging fruit and just too easy to make fun of because it's already so? No, I mean, people believing in it is a funny thing, but the stuff itself, what do you think?
I feel like it's just like it depends on the context you tell it in, because if you tell it exactly like how it's written, it's not funny because, as you say, it's like a low-hanging fruit. But if you find a way to talk about it in another way, or like compare it to something that people can relate to, it would make more sense.
It's not a low-hanging fruit if everybody is not touching it because they're afraid of being called Islamophobic. That's the opposite of it being a low-hanging fruit. It seems like it's a challenge for everybody.
It is definitely a challenge. It's like with these topics, it's a challenge to make them funny. And the good things about these things is once you find a way to make it funny, the joke is usually so good.
Yeah,
because it's very hard to write jokes about.
Well, I'm still waiting for somebody to really take the Quran and the Hadith apart. One day,
I will spread the message in the comedy community.
Well, thank you for that. So what's next for you? Like, what's going on? So I remember we first connected, I think almost a couple of years ago, or definitely more than a year ago.
Yeah,
it was a while ago. Yeah. We did that. And I want to say something over here to your credit. I hope this doesn't embarrass you or anything like that.
No,
but there are Ricky Gervais follows me on Twitter. Can I talk about this?
Oh yeah, you should.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais follows me on Twitter, and there are times when you have tweeted something funny, and I have retweeted you, and then literally just a few hours later, he's kind of written the exact same thing and tweeted it out.
Oh no!
I'm like, no, Ricky, I love you. Yeah. You're great. Don't do this. And it hasn't just happened once. I think it's happened several times.
It happened twice.
Yeah.
It happened twice, and I still have screenshots and everything. I'm just
so do I. Yeah, I kept it too. I was like, okay.
It was so funny, yeah. I'm like, man, you could have just. I'm like, man, you could have just retweeted me. Like, why did you do this?
I know, and at the same time, I guess the downside of it is that he's kind of stole your material.
Yeah.
The upside is that Ricky fucking Gervais stole your material.
Exactly.
So there you go. So
that's so sad. I'm so sorry.
That happened. Yeah, and then we connected that time, and I kind of saw your thing. You also have a sort of a TEDx talk, I think, that you did somewhere, or did you? Yeah, you did, right? And
I did, yeah.
Your sets have just been getting funnier and tighter, and even the original jokes. I think one of the things you used to do before is you used to come on stage immediately and just say that I think I'm an Arab or I'm from Libya.
Libya, yeah.
You're from Libya, and then you'd be like, well, usually that gets a standing ovation after people clapped, and that immediately broke the ice. So there were a lot of, and now I'm just seeing you like traveling all over. Are you doing this full time now?
Yeah, now I'm doing it full time. Yeah.
Right.
There was this Arab girl comedian that I'm trying to find. I saw her on YouTube somewhere, and I can't find her anymore. She was really great, and I'm not good at delivering jokes, but she was saying something about supporting Trump because her dad is a Muslim, and she doesn't want her dad back in the U.S. So she's supporting the Muslim ban because she doesn't want her father back. But
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
I'm trying to find her. You should get in touch with her. She was really great.
Yeah. I looked her up. I think I know who she is. If I find if I find that clip, I'll send it to you.
Oh, sweet, great. Right. In live chat, Patreon question: does Mohanad have any favorite stand-up comics? Who's your favorite stand-up comic?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite stand-up comedians is John Mulaney.
Oh yeah,
He's love John. John Mulaney. I watch every interview with him. Anything that he does, just love that man so much. Another person that I like is Beth Stelling. That's one of my favorite comedians as well. She's so funny.
Oh, I haven't heard. So speaking, I will actually mention there's this, and you should check it. And everybody out there should check him out. Wesley Hough. I don't know if you've heard of him. Have you heard of him? He's not very big. Let me just make sure I got that name right. Yeah, so Wesley Hough he's a comedian who has an album. His most recent album is called God Hates Anne, and it's basically about how he goes through history and he talks about all of the people who made scientific discoveries and what was done with them. And he makes it funny. So you know how Galileo was persecuted? The guy, and he names them. He gives you a history lesson. He talks about how, talks about the story about this guy, and he lived here, grew up, and then he discovered oxygen. So the guy who discovered oxygen, do you know what they did to him? They burned him at the stake, which is ironic because you need oxygen to fucking burn somebody, right? So like he would and he talked about these stories, and it's actually one of the best stand-up specials I've ever heard.
I'll check it out. Absolutely.
I'll send it to you. He's like it's self-released. Apparently, he's done it.
I think I found my limit when it comes to comedy. There's no way I find torture funny in any way. Anyways,
George Carlin would make it funny.
No.
Yeah.
As soon as you talk about somebody being burned, I think, like, I'm not saying people shouldn't say that joke or anything like that. I just think like it just kills the movie for me.
That's because you heard me say it when you. But that is the art of. That's what's so. The best comedians are the ones who take things that you think you would never laugh at, and they make you laugh at it. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, by the way, I want to make sure I ask Mike's question because he was wondering, because he said everybody asks you about, where is it? Everyone is asking him about war instead of normal things. So my question is PC, PlayStation, or Xbox?
Oh, I would say PlayStation because that's what I have.
Okay. Is Mike right? Everybody asks you about war all the time? Like we did?
Yes. People do, and here's my only distinction, like, because like in this podcast, like we talk about everything, and like this is like me being prepared to talk about these things and don't mind talking about them because I I know you both and I no way, but my issue with it is like people who like do not know me at all. Like let's say we're at a party somewhere and someone would hear I'm from Libya and then they start asking me about war and stuff and I'm like who are you? Like I don't know you. Like is that like, and I'm like this just doesn't make any sense to me that you, a person I've never met, at a party where we're supposed to have fun.
Is it in the U.S.? Is it mostly in the U.S.? So hit them back by a question about the U.S. Civil War. Like, so you're American, right? Can you tell me a little bit about the U.S. Civil War?
I guess one of the things is it doesn't really affect them because like they haven't lived it. But with me, it's mostly like one of my favorite things is just like to kill the mood immediately. Like we'd be like having fun and like we're friends together and stuff. And then like, oh, so is your family there? Oh, you still miss them? Like you miss them? Okay. Are they okay? Are you ever worried that they might get killed? And I'm like, what the fuck?
Okay. So what is a good, like, okay, so let's say somebody wants to ask a question, but they shouldn't. How do you test the waters with somebody if it's okay? Should they just not ask? Like, let's say, for example, you hear somebody's from Egypt, right? And you really want to know about the situation there, and you're wondering if, because he's from there, he might know something about, like, you get authentic information from this guy compared to just hearing it on the news or something else, right? But you don't know if it's okay or not to ask. How do you test the waters with something like that?
I mean, I would say, like, for me personally, like, what I don't mind asking these questions as long as this is not what you start with, you know? Okay. Like, maybe, like, get to know me first, like, get to know my name, like, what I do here, like, whatever, this used to happen to me a lot in college. Like, maybe ask me, like, what do I study? Like, what do I do? Where do I live? Ask me more questions about, like, where we are now. And then we can get to those stuff. Then I wouldn't mind it because, like, we established a connection, and I know you, and like we talked about like two other things. And then, like, if you're like, oh, tell me about Libya, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll happily tell you about that. Like, I feel like we made a connection. But like, if the first thing you ask me is about that, like, this is so weird. Like, this is like came out of nowhere, you know?
Yeah, I think that. What happens is that with people like you, where you come from, and actually even with people like me and where I come from, this happens to me a lot too. Once you walk out, I guess in your case, walk out on stage, or once I walk into a party, or there's already they look at you and there's already a presumption about the narrative that you're going to have. Right?
Absolutely.
Like I've gone to parties and I've had people come in and just tell me like, oh, welcome, nice to meet you. By the way, we do have non-alcoholic drinks too, and there's some. This thing doesn't have any bacon in it, so it's okay. You know, I'd be ordering something in a restaurant and they order like, can I get a Caesar salad on the side? And they're like, oh, okay, but that has bacon in it, and I'm like, yeah, I know. So so stuff like that. There's this presumption that they already have.
Okay, I think ex-Muslims are actually sensitive about that. You know, when people assume that they're Muslim, I know a lot of I'm not saying Ali, you're sensitive about it, but I know a lot of ex-Muslims go out of their way to show everybody that they're drinking alcohol or that they're eating pork, just to prove to people that how dare you assume that I don't eat pork.
It's not even like I have a lot of pork, but but it also works the other way way around. I mean, we had this at the Muslimish conference last year. I know my wife Alishba was on a panel with this sort of like progressive hijabi Muslim artist, and she was complaining about how the opposite. She's like, you know, they come and they ask me, they're like, you know, what kind of wine do you want? And she's like, what? Excuse me? And she's like, you know, I'm wearing a hijab. It's offensive if you ask me if I want wine. Right. And then that's what I realized. I was like, wow, it's like these.
Yeah. So non-Muslims are like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Like if they ask, some people are going to get offended. If they don't, like, how dare you just assume I'm going to.
I feel sorry for like the white people who have to keep all this shit straight.
Yeah. It is definitely tricky, but like I feel like sometimes like people like know how, like I feel like it's all about like establishing like a human connection, just like kind of like being a person next to people and not being like no one's asking you to go out of your way to do all of these things. Sometimes it's just as simple as just like either asking or because like I have that some like to me people like would ask me straight up like do you drink or not drink.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like we can just solve it like that. So don't offer me drink or tell me like we don't.
But then they also have to ask you: are you vegan? Are you gluten free? Are you I don't know whatever?
Absolutely.
Are you on
absolutely? Yeah.
But going back to it, I think there is a presumption, and there's this idea that there's going to be some kind of narrative there already. But the other guy, I think one guy who tapped into this really well and made a whole movie about it was Sacha Baron Cohen when he did Borat. Because people here tend to have this idea about foreigners and generally like, oh, in the foreign world they do, where he's sitting with this woman who's a specialist in etiquette, right? Yeah. It teaches you how to do etiquette. And he says that he's like, yes, you know, this is me and my son. He shows him a picture of her son. And she's like, oh, that's very nice. And he says, oh, this is another picture of me and my son. Then he shows him and his son totally naked with their dicks hanging out. They're playing with each other's dicks and stuff. And she looks and she's like, oh, that's nice, but we don't do that here. That's not considered appropriate here. And she's saying it so nicely because she somehow believed that, oh, okay, foreign people, they probably do this. Like, which is, like they already have this assumption. But he pushes it so far. Like just this thing, the presumptions that Americans, like, you know, he goes, like, he takes a shit and then he brings a bag of shit over to the table.
My God, yeah.
And he's like, where do I put this? And everybody's completely acting normal about it.
Can I go back to what you were saying? So when you say, here's what I think some people might have an issue with, is that a lot of people think that, like me and you, I think you guys too, think that their identity is more than just where they were born, right? So, and you don't, like a lot of people don't think about their gender, their place of birth, or their ethnicity, and they don't, because it doesn't really matter to them that, these things don't matter to them that much, because they're busy talking about other things. So, when people especially, for example, gay people, right? For example, when you find out somebody's gay, and you ask them about that. You ask them about, wait, so you know, how is that like? Are you not attracted to it at all? Are you disgusted? People are like, you know, I'm not just a gay person. There's a lot more to me than just being gay, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think like a little when somebody, let's say for example, whenever somebody finds out that I'm from Iran, right? They usually say like, oh, I have a lot of Iranian friends. They're so great. I love Iranian people. I was like, okay, like, good for you. I don't know. Like, you love all Iranian people? Because that's very weird. I know a lot of Iranian people that don't deserve love at all. But it just feels like, you know, it's not that big of a deal to you that you're from there. And when they find out that you're from there, it seems like that's the only thing they notice. And it's just weird, right? And so is people making that such a big part of your identity is the issue that people have with it? Like, is that what you feel?
Absolutely, yes. It is exactly what you said. It's just like, being from Libya is always going to be part of my identity. I'm not trying to hide that, or I'm not ashamed of it. But also, it is like one part, and it's not like it doesn't really define me, because like we talked about comedy, we talked about Libya, we talked about religion, we talked about all of these things. So there are all of these things that make me as a person, and they're like parts of me that I like to talk about more than the other ones, depending on the occasion. And when people like would push me to talk about like one topic like over and over and over again, it's just like I'm getting tired of talking about this. Can we talk about this other thing that I like? And when they see you like as this one thing and you can't get away out of that, it just feels like I wouldn't say it's dehumanizing because it's not to that point, but it just feels like you are less of a person. Like you're not allowed to have interest in other stuff because you are that person and you're like only one thing, and this is your area of expertise, and that's it. Because like one thing like I mentioned like if I'm like with a group of people and people like talking about movies, talking about something, and I want to like jump in and talk about that. People sometimes like would even like when it comes to movies, they would talk about something that took place somewhere in a desert or something.
Like Lawrence of Arabia?
Exactly. I'm like, oh, do you know Lion of the Desert? I like that movie. I'm like, oh, so we're talking about me, but like through the lens of movies now. So I cannot escape.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, no, I want to talk about like, I don't know, some other movie. I want to talk about Bird Box. I don't know, whatever it is. I want to talk about Black Panther. I want to talk about the Avengers movie, whatever. And they just like find ways to kind of like go around and talk about like you again. I'm like, jeez.
Right. Just to be clear, though, there are some people that would like to talk about these things for hours. Like
absolutely, yeah.
I would like to talk about these things for hours, but not because, again, like a lot of people that assume that just because you're from somewhere, you must know a lot about it. But a lot of people that are from there don't know shit about politics or don't know much about. They have a very biased information about their own country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, like so, I was talking to a transgender activist. She was saying don't just assume that everybody that is a transgender, you could just ask them about their sex life or their genitalia or about their not every transgender person is a transgender activist. I am a transgender activist, so I have given the green light to everybody to just come ask me whatever questions they want. But that doesn't mean that every single transgender person is you can just go ask them ask them what's between their legs and stuff like that, right? So again, but me, people. I think for people like us, maybe not you because you're more of a comedian than an activist, but I think for people like me and Ali, it's fair because this is what we talk about all the time. So I think if somebody asks me about politics, this is basically my entire life. I actually prefer that over anything else if people talk about.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I remember I get a lot of emails from colleges and stuff that would invite me to talk about specific conflicts in in the Middle East or something, and I'm like, I have no idea what you want me to say. I'm like, what's the conflict? They're like, yeah, if you can come give your take about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'm like, what do you want me? I have no hot takes on that.
Yeah, I have.
I get it. I know it. I have opinions, but I'm not gonna go deep and dissect what's happening now and how I want to resolve it and stuff. I'm I know about it, but I'm no expert. You shouldn't have me on a panel. Have someone else on a panel.
You should have showed up and just made fun of the people that invited you. Look, they invited me. I don't know why. I have no expertise on this.
Sometimes I would do that and they hate it, but it's fun.
But I have when you had your show in Libya.
Yeah.
So was that a comedic show or was that a commentary show?
It was both. It was both because we couldn't help but to make it funny because that's how we talk. But it was it had a lot of commentary on it because every show we would bring up another topic. We would bring up a new topic and we would actually study that topic beforehand and we kind of get more details on it and stuff and dissect it and talk about it, and then we get phone calls or read text messages about people and what they think and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we had to do a lot of research about that. But it was also funny because we would make fun of a lot of stuff, which is for one reason, people got mad at us because like we were like, you're not taking it seriously. I'm like, no, we are. It's just like some parts of it is funny, you know.
Yeah, but did you bring some of that stuff, some of the social commentary about maybe political issues or things that were, I guess, hot topics over there? Did you bring that or incorporate any of that into your comedy act? Because, like, you know, now you're saying that when people talk to you about politics, would somebody who knows you from that show not necessarily, wouldn't they want to possibly talk about it?
By the way, before you answer, I think your hand is blocking the mic sometimes. Just be careful.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Your connection is...
you mean from me on the radio show?
I'm sorry?
Did you mean from hearing me on the radio show?
Yeah, if people know you from the radio show, so I guess there's two parts to that. One is that have you taken some of that material, some of that which was, I guess, more serious, and incorporated into your comedy? It's a part of you, so I guess that, you know, make it in somehow. And the second thing is, like, if people know you from the radio show, they would likely probably come up to you and talk about those topics as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I have a lot of these people who follow me on Twitter and stuff like that, and they would approach me and be like, yeah, I used to listen to you on the radio back in 2011. I like those stuff. And sometimes they actually remind me of some of the stuff I said, and like, oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I should use that or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of that, and I keep in touch with a lot of these people, and they're just like on Twitter, mostly on social media.
Yeah.
But I haven't met any of them here. Like, yeah.
I have. Do people who are from do you ever find like if you're doing a talk, somebody from your country or your city, and they come up and they try to be best friends with you afterwards, like, hey, you're Libyan, I'm Libyan, let's be.
Oh my God,
let's be Libyan together.
Time, yeah.
Or do you just tell them, it's like, excuse me, if you're Libyan, just don't come up to me. We're not buddies. We don't know each other.
Exactly. You know what? No, but also, like, my favorite thing, it's not that. It's like when someone who's an American, and it's usually like would come to me and be like, oh my God, you should meet my friend. He's also from Libya. And they would, and you can see them like dragging that person. And then there's this awkward silence because I'm like, yeah, so we're both from Libya. Are we supposed to talk about that? Like, what's up?
It's kind of like parents when they meet, and then you see that they have a 5-year-old, and like, oh, I also have a 5-year-old. We should have our kids play together.
Well, at least there's a purpose to that. I mean, that kind of thing. At least it makes sense.
I know that.
If you're just both from Libya, I don't know if that. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you
should be like, I have American friends. Let me introduce them to my American.
Yeah. No, like, for example, like sometimes like I'm taking an Uber or a Lyft or something, and then my Uber driver is from Libya, and then they want to talk to me, and I'm like, yeah, but what do we have in common other than the fact that we come from the same place? It's just like the conversation becomes so forced that we have to say sentences. I'm like, oh, here's a sentence. And here's some words. Blah, 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 blah.
Same thing happens. You have Pakistani Uber drivers and cab drivers and stuff, and sometimes they'll start talking. He's like, "Oh, so you're from India or Pakistan?" I'm like, "I'm from Pakistan." They're like, "Okay." Then they first thing they do is they switch to Urdu, right? And one time I was eating a sandwich from a gas, like one of those fucking gas station sandwiches, turkey, whatever.
Oh, they're great.
So one guy, he told me. And then the problem is, like, they do this. I feel like there's a power imbalance when you're in a cab, because then when they express an opinion, you disagree with it. You can't, because you're stuck in their car and you can't run out.
Uber is worse because they can leave you a review.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a possible Me Too kind of thing happening there, like with the power imbalance, because then he'll turn around and he'll be like, well, that sandwich, that meat is not halal. Like, this actually happened to me once.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't care about that. And he's like, but don't you care? Aren't you Muslim? And so I actually had this conversation with the guy with a beard and stuff. And then I didn't know what to do, because I was like, okay, how do I answer this? This guy's got all the power. He can, like, crash a fucking car.
Yeah.
Right? He can, like, throw me. Like, he can lock the doors, and then I don't know.
You're way more careful than I am. I try to, if the conversation goes there in a taxi, I try to see how how offensive I can get. I try to push everything to the very limit when that happens.
I will do that sometimes, but not all that. Not with this guy. This guy, I knew it was never going to get anywhere. But what I mean is that people try to do that. Another example of it that's really nuts is like, when people are gay and someone says, "Oh, okay, this person is like, oh, I have a really good friend and he's also gay. You guys should meet.
You guys should fuck."
It's like, what are you trying to tell me? You're trying to you guys are both gay. Fuck.
Jesus. Yeah, no, it is so. Yeah, and it's like people have to tell you. Like, I don't know why. I don't know if it's human nature or something, but they have to tell him, like, oh, that thing you are, I know something similar to it, and you both should meet. No. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I can find my own, Like sometimes I'm like, if I wanted Libyans, I will go find them. I don't need help.
I know.
When I came to Canada originally, I actually was so pissed off about any of this that I kind of overcorrected. Like, when I first went to college, I saw like all the Iranians sitting together in one corner, and I promised myself that I will never join them because I thought, like, if I join them, I will be stuck in that group forever. It was so I avoided them so much that somebody actually one time mentioned that, oh, Armin is in this college, and this one girl was like, no, it's impossible. I know all the Iranians in this college, and I've never met Armin, so he's not in that college. But I really tried to avoid them, and every time I met Iranians in Canada, I usually try to take the conversation in a way that to say things that I know I would basically shit on sacred cows of most Iranians, right? Like anti-nationalism views, anti-patriotic views, because I was so trying to overcorrect for that. I don't know. I went overboard with that a little bit.
Hey, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a nickname? Is it Mo, or is it like, what is it?
Yeah, a lot of people call me Mo. Yeah.
What do you like, though?
I mean, when people can't pronounce my name, I prefer that. I prefer my name. But if people just can't, if people like keep mispronouncing my name, I'm like, well, from now on, you're calling me Mo. That's what we're gonna go with.
Wait, your name is not that hard to pronounce, though.
Oh, tell people that.
Yeah, no, it is hard to pronounce. Because I didn't know if it was Mohanad or Mohanad
it's Mohanad.
Just Muhammad with an N. It's easy.
Yeah, exactly. Mohanad. Yeah.
That was his joke. Yep. It was like he was just lazy.
Does it have a tashdid on the N?
Exactly. Yeah.
Does it?
It does. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mohanad. Yeah, but that's true. That's like me naming my fucking gun like Aki or something. Like, it's
exactly.
See, this is a problem with Zulfaqar. Nobody will name their kids Zulfaqar. It's too big.
No, people do. It's a very common practice.
Yeah. Oh, they do? Holy shit.
Yeah. Okay. Nickname is Zulfi. It happens all the time. Oh. Yeah. But anyway, listen. So yeah, we've had some time. I'm sorry, like the connection thing, like, because I guess
get better into it, man. You're a comedian. You're gonna do interviews and stuff more.
Yeah, Mo, we need to have you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. About the internet, I just moved to this new place, and I still need to set up like a good internet because I'm just using the one in the building. So
right.
Yeah, we gotta. But the thing is that when you do, we gotta get, because I feel like a lot of the comic timing and everything, like if we have you back on when we could just have this conversation for ages.
Absolutely,
if you make any material on Islam, please send it to me so I can share it on Atheist.
I promise you.
Armin will be he'll be right at the front row, and you won't even have to ask him if it's uncomfortable.
By the way,
you can ask him, are you comfortable enough now? And he'll be like, I'm almost there.
Oh, Mike in the live chat is saying he's happy that you picked PlayStation, by the way. Apparently, he's very happy. So that's
what's that?
Mike in the live chat, he's very happy that you picked PlayStation from the history.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But, dude, you're hilarious. You're just loads of fun. And I know that we're kind of working on a project together. I don't want to announce it here right now. But it's so it's going to be... Hopefully that materializes. Let's see. But I wanted to just mention your website. It's MohanadElshieky.com. We're going to put it in the description. It's MohanadElshieky.com, and you have a list of your shows, upcoming shows. Do you have any plans? I know that you're not coming to Toronto, but do you have any plans to go to maybe Detroit or Buffalo or anything like that at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm planning a trip soon, maybe in March, to the West Coast. East Coast. Yeah, East Coast.
Shit.
To the East Coast, yeah.
I got excited for a little bit.
Yeah, he is on the West Coast, Armin. He's actually not too far from you.
Any chance you're going to come to Vancouver?
Vancouver, probably. I mean, I'm going to Canada once I get my green card, which is going to happen in October, not before that.
Okay, cool. So after that, we'll get you here.
Okay. Absolutely.
So I would love to, if you're cool with it, like put you in touch with some of these conferences and everything that we do, because I know that they're trying to look for stand-up material. They're looking for musicians. They're looking for people like that. So it would be just awesome to have somebody of your caliber and your level do it.
Absolutely.
Over there.
My pleasure.
So, thanks for joining us, man. This was amazing, apart from the few technical glitches. And to the audience, we're sorry about some of the audio issues. We hope it was still worth it, because the story was incredible.
Yeah.
I was, in the beginning, I thought we would dive in and start talking about the comedy, but I got so riveted with all the serious stuff that, because we've never heard that story. Never heard it from somebody who was actually there, so it's been brilliant. We had another guy here who was once this guy named Omar, who was also from Benghazi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he had. I'll send you a link to that
Absolutely,
episode. As well.
Oh, by the way, Sean in the live chat is saying good collaboration, cliffhanger, Ali. So
that's how we do it.
Where should they keep an eye on the cliffhanger that you left everyone on? Like, where should they?
On social media.
Yeah, just follow you.
They can follow us. Follow Mohanad, follow me, and when it happens, it'll happen. You'll find out about it.
He also says thanks, everybody. Mars is also saying thanks as always, folks. Oh, thank you. And Mike is going to say live long and prosper pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, he always does.
Yeah, he always does.
So we have our patrons. So Mohanad, thank you, and thanks everybody else, and we'll see you next time.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.